attivista, scienziata ambientale, sempre impegnata appunto nella tutela della biodiversità, nello sviluppo anche di quella che noi oggi chiamiamo green economy, ma che Vandana Shiva ha portato avanti prima come difesa, tutela della sua India, del suo ambiente, della biodiversità del suo paese, ma anche di quella che è l'equità sociale legata al lavoro dei contadini indiani. E ha sempre avuto grande fiducia nelle potenzialità dei giovani. Non a caso il suo intervento oggi si intitola La Terra salvata dai giovani. È stata ospite del primo convegno Gjusti di 2 anni fa, se non sbaglio, in Regione Lombardia, e già in quell'occasione era stata di stimolo proprio all'attività dei giovani, a quello che voi potete fare, non solo nel mondo del lavoro, non solo le opportunità che la green economy vi può dare, ma l'opportunità che voi siete proprio per questo mondo, per l'ambiente. Welcome, nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Quindi diamo il benvenuto. Ecco, al produttore simultaneo. Sì, appunto, non sarebbe necessario, no? Effettivamente tutti i nostri ragazzi non aspettavano altro che questo momento. Ecco, la terra salvata dai giovani, i giovani sono proprio la nuova risorsa.
Thank you very much, and I'm very happy to be able to join this forum about the future shaped by the future generations. Many years ago, I was asked to write an essay on resource. And the original meaning of resource comes from resurgence, that which renews. Increasingly, the word resource has been reduced to mean raw material. Human resource are people who can be fitted into a giant machinery. Natural resource is aspects of nature that can be exploited, again for that same giant machinery. There was a lot of reference to the crisis. And the crisis, of course, is multidimensional. I see it as different expressions of one crisis. And that one crisis is created by an economy that has lost its way. Why do I say it's lost its way? The word economy comes from the word oikos. Oikos means home. The word ecology also comes from that same root oikos. And ecology refers to the science of the household, our planet, our local region, our territory, our community. An economy is supposed to mean the management of that household. So, the sustainable management and care of the earth, of the planet, of your rivers, of your farms, of your land. But today, if you think of economy, it means a few giant corporations in every sector. And this hasn't just happened. It's not a natural phenomena. In the 1990s, a structure was introduced in the world. It's called globalization. It's also called free trade. But this free trade is defined as freedom of a few corporations to exploit resources anywhere in the world, and to be able to get concessions in doing that. Let me give you an example on food and agriculture. India had wonderful food. Italy has the best food in the Western world. But are the local food companies getting the support? Are the local farmers getting the support? No. There's a common agriculture policy that takes 50% of the tax money of Europe and puts it at the service of agribusiness. So in Europe, the small dairy collapses. In Europe, the pure cheese maker goes under. And yet, there's a surplus of milk. And then the European Union tries to sign an agreement with India called the EU-India Free Trade Treaty. It's happening right now. India is the largest dairy producer of the world. But we don't have animals in one giant factory with 100,000 cows, tortured, violated, fed with hormones, fed with GM soybean from Argentina and Brazil and USA. No, our dairy is run by women. A woman will have 1 cow, 2 buffaloes, 5 goats, that's it. And yet it adds up to be the biggest dairy economy of the world. Because the dairy producers are organized as a cooperative at the national level. So you begin with small producers, then you link up and you link up and you link up, and the milk is processed, produced, shipped. But the producer is a small producer. The animal is a free animal, which means that large numbers of people have work, largely women. Now, if the EU-India Free Trade Agreement went through, on the one hand, the dairy producers of Europe are going to Brussels to dump milk on the streets because they're not making enough money. The cost of dairy is more than what you earn from milk. And why is that? Because every farmer, every dairy farmer has been pushed into buying more and more costly equipment. They've been pushed into putting more and more cows together. You know, the Eastern Europeans are now part of the European Union. And in Romania, it used to be like India. They had 1 cow, 2 cows, 3 cows. The European Union says, no, you can't have just 2 cows. You've got to have 500. And you've got to put them in a prison. And you've got to torture them and exploit them. And the system is a magical system because it uses lots of resources, it uses lots of energy, it uses lots of money, and then it produces cheap goods. How does that happen? It happens because of 2 factors. Subsidies. If half of Europe's money is going to agricultural subsidies, then what is produced at very high cost will become very cheap. So we have this problem of destruction of the good, the quality, the just, the sustainable by this false creation of cheap. It could be cheap food, it could be cheap clothing. Now, again, you know, India is a place that produces very beautiful handmade textiles. Italy has been the capital of design with quality, and not just for a few luxury consumers. Every Italian is dressed to please themselves and the world. You know, you all are beautiful. Your clothes are beautiful. They've been made in small units all over, which I know in this area are shutting down. Now, just like in dairy, you can have many people working with animals to produce what human beings need in terms of milk and cheese and yogurt. In clothing, you can have many people involved in producing high-quality clothing with care, with beauty, locally generating lots of employment. Or you can have the model that is emerging with globalization and free trade, where local high-quality clothing is no more viable. Everything goes to China and Bangladesh. People lose jobs here, and in Bangladesh, the women die in a factory collapse. You heard that just now. So human beings are being split into three categories. Those who play the game of exploitation, they play the game of greed. Very few. They're very, very few. And then the rest of human beings either turned into redundant people, disposable people, or exploited people. And wherever I travel in the world today, everyone says that what is being created is a slavery system. That if you have work, you can only work as a slave, not as a free, sovereign, creative human being. And the future that the young people have to create is a future to refuse to be a slave or a disposable person. Because the earth didn't say to the species, I only want 5 of you. The earth supports and nourishes 300 million species. And in each species, so much diversity. Just the one human species, look at the amount of diversity we have. Racial diversity, of course, the gender diversity, but even within each race, I mean, no 2 of you are identical in this room. And that uniqueness that goes hand in hand with diversity is creativity. It's the creativity of the earth, but it's the creativity in each of us. There was a lot of discussion in the session before on the labor market. I personally don't want to use that phrase. Why don't I want to use that phrase? Because when I started to deal with globalization, when I started to understand how in each sector 5 companies were becoming the players, 5 companies wanting to control water, and you had a referendum to say water would stay a public good. 5 companies in oil, 5 companies in agribusiness, 5 companies in seed. And wherever you look, 5 giant companies, 5 financial banks. Then you start to look at how many do they employ. The first thing they do to make themselves viable is throw out people. So Citibank, to increase its profitability, will remove 4,000 today, 5,000 tomorrow. So they are creating a future without work. And how do you create a future without work? By making machines do the work for you instead of human beings. In the case of banking, it's computers. And now people don't know anymore how the financial system works because it's programs, algorithms that are generating the profitability of risk-taking, which is what the financial system has become. It's become a casino. It's become a place for betting. Now, money used to be a medium. Yeah? I give you a banknote, and from my experience, a banknote is nothing. Money is nothing. All it says is, I promise to pay the bearer. It's just a promise. I promise to pay the bearer this much. It is a convenient surrogate to exchanging real things. Because, we can't each go around all the time with 3 bags of tomatoes and 1 sack of rice, or whatever we produce. So money became a medium of exchange, but it was merely a means of exchange. Today, it has got so separated from the real economy, and it has taken on a life of its own. So no one talks, if you look at the financial papers, they don't talk about how well are the young people doing. How happy are they? How depressed are they? How much hope do they have? But you talk about the market is healthy. The market is happy. How can a market be happy? It's an abstraction of relationships. So we have created this crisis of giving personhood to things that aren't persons, subjecthood to things that aren't subject. So these corporations, again, just like that piece of paper says, I promise to pay you the equivalent of 10 euro. And then you can exchange that 10 euro equivalence with something else. In the case of associations, they're associations of real people. Yeah? Real people come together to create work. Real people come together to create service. Real people come together to create associations. But there's another entity now which used to be an association and it's become a corporation. So there were real people who ran a business. Maybe a family business, maybe 5 partners. And now they're anonymous entities. And the corporation is no more people, but it is a legal person. And it has higher rights than real persons. That is what globalization and free trade have given us. That personhood has been allocated to giant corporations which have no responsibility, which don't belong anywhere, which don't care for anybody. For them, the world is throwaway resources, disposable resources like this plastic cup, and throwaway people. I don't believe a single human being is a throwaway person. I don't think any resource is a throwaway resource. And that is why the green economy, for me, is about protecting the original economy of the earth, oikos, which now they're finding out, now the UNEP, the United Nations Environment Program, is working away at calculating how much does nature give us. Yeah? How much are the worth of ecological goods and services? And just in terms of bees and pollinators, they're finding $50 billion worth of work the bees do in agricultural productivity. If we didn't have pollination, we wouldn't have a crop. And where pesticides have killed pollinators, 75% of the bees of this planet are gone because of toxic pesticides. When the bees are gone, what do? They actually, literally, in China, they've killed their bees. By hand, they have to pollinate their fruit trees. In US, they ship bees across the continent because their almond groves have no bees. So they have to bring them from outside. And the colony collapse disorder is leading to the disappearance of bees. Now, the 2 very big illusions that we have to go beyond in order to create a green economy and in order for the young to create their own future. The first is the illusion that nature is dead. Nature is not dead. It's a 200-year-old assumption that was made so that we could have industrialization, we could behave as if machines create value and nature just gives raw material. But now the new science is telling us nature's very alive. Each organism organizes itself and renews. The earth as a whole now is called Gaia, from the Greek goddess Gaia, the earth. She's constantly renewing the conditions of life on earth, maintaining the balance, allowing systems to be created that have the right temperature, the right oxygen, the right carbon, so we can all live. The second very, very false assumption is people have no skills. I get very disappointed to see that it is assumed there are only 3 skills the future will need. Biotechnology, how to make GMOs, business management, and information technology. we need much more. These might have a place, but they can't be the only skills future generations have. For two reasons. First, these sectors don't have place for people. Biotechnology, genetic engineering fits into an agriculture system that requires only 1% people in farming, because it's an industrial system. It has replaced people with chemicals and giant machines. If you go to the United States, you don't see people on the land. You see giant caterpillar tractors, one person. I was in Greece 2 days ago, which is also going through a crisis. And they've been made to buy these very big caterpillar tractors. And they're in debt. And the price of oil has jumped double, so they can't operate them anymore. It's become unviable. Now, 1%, an agriculture which controls the world's agriculture but has only 1% people, cannot create work. But not only can it not create work, it doesn't give us food. 80% of the food that we eat today comes from small family farms in the third world and in the world. The giant industrial farms are not producing food anymore. They're producing commodities. And the commodities go to run a car, if you have a car, biofuel, and that's where a lot of the subsidies are going. Most of the corn is not being eaten for, what do you call your corn dish in Italy? Polenta. No, that corn is not making polenta or the Indian chapati. It's going for biofuel. The canola is going for biofuel. The soya is going for biodiesel or torturing animals in factory farms. Animals were not designed to eat grain. Their stomachs. You know, cows have 4 stomachs because they eat a lot of roughage and they need 4 stomachs to process it. They're called herbivores because herbs is what they eat. But we are taking grain from human beings, feeding it to animals, making the animals sick. And then, when people eat those animals, they're getting sick. Because there are new studies showing that animals fed with grain have a lot of the negative bacteria in their stomach, bad E. coli. And when we eat that, we also get bad bacteria in our stomach. The good bacteria goes. Just as in food, an industrial globalized system is destroying work, destroying food, and destroying the planet. 75% of the water, 75% biodiversity, 75% soil, and 40% of climate damage is coming from an industrialized, globalized form of farming. On the other hand, ecological agriculture, a real green economy, both in cultivation but in processing, the only good food is food that is artisanally processed, which is why Italy's food is so good, because you have artisanal processing. The minute food goes through these huge industrial processing systems, the quality of food degrades. I was reading in a book called Fast Food Nation, written by Eric Schossler, that to make, a real strawberry ice cream has real strawberries in it. But we've reached such a strange situation where real strawberries in ice cream is more costly than putting 32 chemicals into ice cream to create the pretension that there's strawberry flavor. And all untested. But why does it become cheap? Because of those subsidies. Because of the fact that the maker of ice cream is not really paying the full cost. So when we create a green economy in food, we create more farmers. And farmers have knowledge. We need to have, just like you're talking about schools that create vocations, one of the most important vocations of the future will be farming. How to produce food. Not just in the countryside, but in the city. How to process food. We run a grandmother's university at the Earth University that I've created in India, precisely for the future generations to cultivate the multiple skills they will need. And in our grandmother's university, we have grandmothers teaching simple things that are vital to the future. We've been made to believe that everything our grandmothers knew is part of history. Many things our grandmothers knew is part of the future. So I would tell the young people, cultivate the future on the basis of grandmother's knowledge. Go talk to your grandmothers, because they have been prudent. They have lived through wars. They have lived through all kinds of situations, and yet they brought food to the table. They are the experts in economics. They are the experts in managing the household. They are experts in knowing how to stretch limited resources so nobody goes hungry. Those are the skills we will need, because the current economic model that has given us a crisis is very good at wasting resources. 10 units are put into food and you get 1 unit out as food. 9 units are being wasted as entropy, as dissipated energy. What we need is 1 unit growing into food to create 5 units of nutrition. One of the other things that we will have to learn again to do is to realize we are part of the earth. That the same soil that cultivates the plant nourishes our bodies. And that is why in all ancient philosophies, earth was an element. We are the earth. We have the earth element in us. When we forget that, we think we can create fake food. Yeah? You can create plastic food. And somehow everything will be fine, but nothing is fine. Young people eat junk food, and then they suffer from obesity. At 7 years, our young people in India who live on hamburgers and chips and Coca-Cola are getting diabetes, adult onset diabetes. 25% of the young people in Delhi are now suffering from obesity. Because you can't cheat the body. There's a false sugar, a fake sugar that's in all the cold drinks that you drink. It's called high fructose corn syrup. It's pulled out of the corn and synthesized. It goes straight to the liver and gives young people cirrhosis of the liver even if they're not drinking alcohol. So we can't cheat the body. Because we can't cheat the body, we must eat real food. In order to eat real food, we must grow real food. I just carried yesterday's paper. You know, Spain is also having a crisis. And one of the things that has started to happen is unemployed youth are going to the country and stealing food because they are starving. We don't need to do this to ourselves. The earth is saying, I will feed you. I will create work for you. I will give you abundance. You don't have to be without work, and you don't have to be without food. In Indian language, you have a term called rozi roti. Work and food is one. Because you work to create food, and food gives you work, allows you to have the capacity. So everything is food. Everything in the world is food. Someone else's food. We are food for the bacteria. After we go, they eat us. And if we were to make a pyramid, then man is not at the top, the bacteria is in the web of life. Everyone is food. We are connected through the web of life. So as you approach the Expo 2015 with the theme, Food for the Planet, Energy for Life, the 2 shifts we need to make. Food is not a commodity. It's not what's put on a container ship and goes off to run a car, feed an animal, and leftovers come to human beings. Food is what you know you grow. It must be local. Food must be grown sustainably. That's the green economy. The second thing, energy is life. Energy is not just the electricity that is lighting those lamps and allowing this mic to work. Energy is you. We forget human energy. We forget that each of us is not just a consumer of energy, we are a source of energy. And we need to generate that energy in ourselves by cultivating hope, by cultivating skills, by cultivating a dream for an economy for the future, which is in the hands of the future generations. I would say one last thing. A green economy means we reduce our ecological footprint because the human footprint has become too heavy for the planet. We are shipping things around, emitting carbon dioxide, destroying the ability of the climate to maintain itself and give us a predictable winter and a summer and a rain, disturbing and causing chaos of a very high kind. So we have to reduce our ecological footprint. But it was an erroneous economy that said a heavy footprint goes hand in hand with a good quality of life. You can have a lower footprint and a higher quality of life. I work with the government of Bhutan. And in fact, I'll be going there again on the 31st of June. The government of Bhutan has invited Navdanya, the movement I started in India, to help them go 100% organic. And the Prime Minister wrote in a letter to me that I want us to be organic because it's the only way to grow happiness. Why does he talk about growing happiness instead of growing food? Because Bhutan has said we won't measure growth. What does growth measure? Only that which has been commodified. That which has left an ecosystem or a community is measured as growth. You know, your mother is cooking for you, that's not counted as contributing. If you as a young person are serving community, that's not counted as contributing to growth. What counts as contributing to growth is commodification. If water is pulled out of the river and sold, then it contributes to growth. But if the river provides you water, then it's not contributing to growth. So it's a very, very illusionary way of measuring it. It was created for the war. It was created to mobilize resources for the war. But real growth is the growth of healthy future generations, a healthy youth, a youth which knows that there is meaning in the world. So Bhutan says we'll measure gross national happiness and well-being. And I think that has to be one of the things the young people had to learn, to go beyond growth into the economics of well-being. Where do you get well-being? Through meaningful work. Meaningful work does not mean waiting for that one financial job in a shrinking economy. Meaningful work could mean right here in your community that gives you satisfaction, that you contributed to the earth, you contributed to community. And as we make more and more dense relationships, you talked about shorter distance. The shortening of distance has to be in food. The shortening of distance has to be in the way we work. The shortening of distance has to be in the way we use resources. That's why the shrinking of the ecological footprint. But this shortening of distances must go hand in hand with an increase in compassion, increase in our ability to think inclusively. So I say, reduce the ecological footprint and enlarge your handprint, your ability to work, your heartprint, your ability to care, and your headprint, your ability to know the whole, the planet as a whole, your country as a whole, your community as a whole. The future is in your caring hands. And the more you'll care, the more satisfaction you will have. The more you give, as St. Francis of Assisi said, it's only in giving that we receive. Your future is blessed. Thank you.
Thank you. Da-
Thank you.
Da questo messaggio a voi giovani è arrivato un grande stimolo, una grande fiducia, però anche una grande responsabilità allo stesso tempo. La responsabilità di avere sulle vostre spalle in qualche maniera anche lo sviluppo di quello che sarà questo pianeta. Quindi ringraziamo ancora Vandana Shiva per la sua partecipazione e se qualcuno di voi vuole fare qualche domanda siamo qui ben disponibili. Abbiamo un microfono a disposizione, qualche coraggioso che rompe il ghiaccio?
Da dove cominciamo il cambiamento e quando?
We have to start here and now. And that is why you have to start with that which you can change. You can change the way you eat, so make that change. You can change the way food is grown, make that change. We have started a huge campaign for seed freedom because the European Commission hasn't been satisfied with the destruction of agriculture yet. The European Commission on 6th of May put forward a draft law that would make it illegal for any gardener, any farmer to have their own seed. Brussels, not Rome, Brussels will approve what seeds you can grow, which will be the seeds the companies want to sell. And the reason they're passing this law is they wanted Europeans to eat GMOs, and most Europeans said, we don't want to eat GMOs. So they haven't been able to capture the market of GMOs like in the USA. So they're saying, okay, we'll prevent them from having their own seed, then they will have to eat GMOs. They're forcing GMOs through the seed legislation. And on the 6th, when I heard of this, I gave a call to all my European brothers, sisters, daughters, sons. Protect the seed. Defend your seed freedom and seed sovereignty, and follow Gandhi. Gandhi had said when the British forced us to stop making salt because they wanted to monopolize salt in order to sell it to us and then buy bigger guns to shoot at us. And Gandhi walked to the beach, picked up the salt from the sea and said, nature gives it for free. We need it for our survival. We will continue to make our own salt. We will not obey your salt laws. We have to say the same. Nature and our ancestors have given these seeds to us. These seeds are the seeds of our future. These seeds are the seeds of our cultivation. These seeds are the seeds of our cultures. These seeds are the seeds of nutrition and health. We are very sorry. We will not obey your seed laws that make it a criminal offense to have diversity on your farm or your own seed. And to the young people, to the young people I want to say this. Till 1982, I used to be employed. I used to work for a university. And at the end of the month, I'd get a check. And it was all very secure. But then in 82, I was asked by the government to do a study which led to the closure of mines in a very important part of India. And then I said, the earth is inviting me to do work. Work is not only that which you do when someone else gives you a check. Work is that which you do from your conscience. And you have to create creative work. You can join hands, you can work with others. There are hundreds of ways in which you can create work. Work is not a job that someone else will give you. Work is what you create to live your life on this planet, and there are millions of ways you can do it.
C'è qualche altra domanda che volete fare? Qualche studente che ha qualche curiosità o qualche domanda che vuol fare?
Capita tutti i giorni di avere la
No, è un'occasione, senza dubbio. No, sono rimasti ammutoliti da questo invito. Forse sento qualcuno fare una domanda. Ok, allora se mi confermate che non... Ok, meno male la professoressa è più coraggiosa degli studenti.
Si intitola il suo intervento. Penso che tutti noi possiamo fare qualcosa, ma perché proprio i giovani possono salvare la Terra? Proprio in particolare i giovani?
Yes, everyone can do something to save the earth, and I did specially mention the grandmothers, whose knowledge is so vital to the future. But what is the challenge of sustainability? The challenge of sustainability is to care for the earth and her resources, her soil and her biodiversity and her water and her rivers in ways that they are available for the future. What are the youth? They are the future generations. So the rights of nature are the rights of nature to evolve into the future. The rights of the youth are connected to the responsibility to care for the earth, create opportunities, and create their rights to have work, meaning, satisfaction. So the rights of nature and the rights of the future become one. That is why I particularly focused on it. But I also want to mention that ancient societies like India, as well as the Native American societies, we had a measure of what is the right action, what's the good thing to do. And the measure was 7th generation. Assess the impact of your action against the 7th generation to come. And if it will do good to them, then do it. And if it will harm the 7th generation, don't. That is why how societies were sustainable. Now, I think society has to be reminded that there are 7 generations to come. And the rights of future generations, the voice of future generations must count. I don't feel happy when your former president, Mario Monti, said, the young are the lost generation. No, you people who messed up the world are the lost generation. The young are the future. And one more little thing. You know, the Canadian women, Native American women who were, their land was taken, they were put into reservations with no work, disease, ill health, addictions. The women came out last October, I think, and have started a movement that has exploded. The movement is called Idle No More. Idle no more. We will not sit around waiting. We will not be idle. We will be creative. We will define our future.
Benissimo, penso che oggi sia stata per voi una giornata piena di stimoli, piena di input su cui possiamo continuare a riflettere. Il prossimo appuntamento è per il 30 maggio alla scuola Marconi Argenti, esatto, in cui voi sarete protagonisti in quell'occasione, e vi invito a guardare nel foyer comunque i lavori fatti anche dagli altri vostri compagni delle altre scuole. Ringraziamo ancora Vandana Shiva, propongo ancora un applauso.
Anche.
Buon lavoro a tutti.